going to do first before we really jump into the content is I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves really quick, and I'll introduce myself first. My name is J.D. Tengberg. I'm a partner at Deloitte's Transactions and Business Analytics Group. Jason, why don't you go ahead and go next?
My name is Jason Henderson. I'm a senior manager in product management at Dish Network. I do some writing on the side. I had an announcement just today that Macmillan picked up a new children's book series for me called Young Captain Nemo. So that's coming. Thank you. It's a 3-book deal. I'm very excited.
And is everyone getting a copy of that on their departure?
Just send me an email, all right? I'll get you an ARC. That's one thing I do, but at Dish Network, I evaluate new opportunities, new content, and new products.
Joe?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Joe Friend. Not to be outdone on the publishing front, I got a 5-issue graphic novel coming out in June.
Woo! Nice.
This is great. But what do I do today? I run the ad technology team at Fox for their advanced ad products organization under Fox Networks Group. That includes Fox Broadcast Company, FX Networks, Nat Geo, Big Ten Networks, Fox Sports, and Fox Deportes. And we're also well partnered with their interactive advertising arm, Truex. One more second.
All the time you need.
Yeah. So we're responsible for the technical integrations and ad inventory, et cetera, on up to 20 platforms per business unit, including Hulu, all your connected devices, and then the mobile apps and the tablet webs and all that good stuff.
Excellent. I'm not a writer, children's book or graphic novel, but I will read to my children Young Captain Nemo.
Excellent.
My name is Barry Loudis. I'm with Turner. I'm a senior director of business development, digital distribution on our content distribution team. We sit at the middle of our brands and our distribution outlets, whether that be a cable or satellite provider or one of the digital opportunities, everything from Roku, Apple to Google, YouTube, Snapchat, you name it.
Excellent.
Okay, great. Can everybody hear me if I stand away from the microphone? My voice tends to carry quite a bit. You know, people sitting outside my office always complaining, would you just shut up or shut the door? You're too damn loud. Anyway, you know a little bit about our panelists. Let's let them learn a little bit about you. How many people have a paid television subscription? How many people have cut the cord? Okay, that's good. How many cord nevers do we have? Okay, interesting. How many have 2 streaming subscriptions? 3, 4, 5.
He's our favorite right here. This guy.
6. No,
It's 5. Stops at 5.
Are there 6?
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised. And then I guess the last question I'll say is, how many people have purchased content in the last 30 days? Show of hands. Multiple product? TV, film? Something else? Okay. Is that fair enough?
What did that look like to you? Did it look like about half had purchased content in the last, or 40% about?
I would have said it was a little less than half had purchased content.
Oh, interesting. Cool.
Okay? So before we begin, let me just lay a little foundation. On the back of your little guidebook, there is a promo here for Deloitte's Digital Democracy Survey. Basically, 11 years ago, we started doing a survey not on how many DVRs were in the house or what was X penetration of whatever we're talking about. Wanted to get to the heart of what consumers are really thinking about doing next year or the year after and how much they value certain products. And so we started to do a survey. You can get a copy of it there if you want. But what I wanted to do is just lay a little foundation for some of our questions here. First thing is just talk about a little bit about streaming, since we've talked about that. Oops. So one of the questions in there is, of the services your household purchases, what do you value the most? Anybody guess what they value the most?
The TV?
No?
Internet.
Home internet. Number 1 by far across all demographics. Number 2, what's after number 2? Paid television. Paid television subscription was number 2. Number 3 was their streaming service. Okay, and so home internet was 94%, valued that in their top 3. Paid TV was 76%. Streaming was 57. So there was still some distance between streaming and paid television. However, between millennials and what I'll call Gen Z, kind of our teenagers, those absolutely flip-flopped in the same kind of organization. So streaming was the second most valued item that our millennials are doing. Does that strike you as odd or different than what you're seeing?
Absolutely not. No, in fact, that's why Dish has been working to try to reach out to millennials with things like Sling TV. You know, meaning the things that they demand, which are different from the things, you know, they wanted easy installation, they wanted no contract, you know, they wanted portability, you know, so they're, you know, they wanted more selection. So yeah, we've been working with that assumption.
Okay. Any comment there, Barry?
That doesn't surprise, no, that falls right in line with where we are. You know, it's all about telling the good story. And I think that the younger group, that millennial group, sees value in a story, but they want it where they want it.
That's exactly right.
And when they want it.
Okay. Well, and half of the respondents actually say that they have a streaming subscription. And that's half. So of that half, though, take a guess at what the average is for a millennial. How many streaming services they got? Just take a guess. 3? I hear 3.
They use other people's passwords.
Absolutely. I tell you, I've got college-age kids, so I can confirm that. It's actually 4 for millennials. They actually have 4 streaming services, and when this is a survey that they respond to, so it's not like we verify what they say. So it might be altruistic, or anyway, it could have some biases based upon your own perception of yourself. So. So let's get into streaming here. Joe, streaming services, friend, foe, both. What's the verdict?
For us, it's most definitely a friend. Given my ad technology background, I mean, it would seem counterintuitive for me to say this, but the reality is there are people who understand the subscription equation. They're willing to pay for their content. We are well partnered with our distribution partners to make sure that our content is there with them on their OTT and new media integration platforms. But then there's also the group of people that don't mind the advertising. They understand the value exchange inherent in it. And more importantly, they also understand that we're, you know, experimenting with architecting reduced ad loads based off of interactivity and end user action, and that is an easy agreement to sell to them. Hey, if you interact with us, you get less advertising, and you get to enjoy more of your show. If you choose not to, you'll get the regular ads load. So from the consumer side, it's an easier sell, it's an easier equation, it's easier to understand. I think the issues arise at the advertiser and agency level, and also at the marketplaces that sit in between, where, well, starting with the marketplace, they're trying to push volume, so they don't necessarily want reduced ads load. They don't want the user to be empowered to skip the advertising because that steals market share from them. Now, the advertiser agency, you know, I just actually came from the women on the VR panel, which was super interesting, so I'm changing my career now. But, the point being is they were talking about sexual harassment in the workplace, and I was thinking about 20 years ago when I worked at a newspaper, and I was like, oh, you know, things have grown up a little from them. The point here being that the market is also growing around it to make sure that we are providing the right experience at the right time to the right people.
Barry?
They're friends. Streaming services are friends. We've launched 2 at Turner in the last 9 months, Filmstruck and Boomerang, with great results. We're making investments in that area. We're also making big investments in our existing streaming services that are included in your cable or satellite subscription. And that's really important. TV everywhere for us is very important and still a very integral piece to our ad sales equation, to our subscription value equation, to a lot of things. So definitely friend.
Was the question that is streaming service is advertising a friend of streaming, or how
Well,
did that?
just from a very, very big picture, I've heard many people just say that streaming has been, like, ESPN likes to point to streaming as a
Yeah.
reason that they're losing subscribers, and they'll complain about losing their $7 a month per subscriber there. But, you know, you'll also be able to get other consumers along the way, and so the question was really around whether streaming is a friend, or is it a foe, or is it both, or?
Well, I mean, it's inevitable, regardless. And if you can figure out a way to mitigate your costs, then there's no particular reason why streaming should hurt your business. You know, to me, people absolutely want it, and there is more than just streaming. For instance, right now, Dish has been looking very closely at the fact that there's also all of this content that's still coming in over the airwaves digitally, you know, and we're figuring out, you know, how can we help people cut costs by getting, for instance, CBS. There's now 3 flavors of CBS, well, it was multiple, but 3 flavors of CBS you can get. You can get CBS across your linear cable provider, like Dish or Comcast or whatever. You can get CBS through CBS All Access, which of course has both paid and it also carries advertising, although strangely inserted. And then there's still CBS coming over your airwaves. So we've worked really hard so that you can actually attach an antenna, like an old-fashioned antenna, onto your house or onto your wall, and it comes into your cable box, and we treat it like any other linear channel. That one's up to you, and you can figure out, you know, how, of course, in that case, you have to put up with the linear advertising. All those choices are there.
And just to clarify, when you said streaming, I assumed you meant streaming subscription services versus
Yeah, no.
the advertising model. We have full capabilities on live streams to do ad replacement as well. So the technology's there to support it. So I wouldn't see ESPN harping over losing market share from that particular item. There's solutions to work around that.
So you brought up live streaming. What changes are you seeing or you think will be coming down the road because of that? How do you see that disrupting us?
I might be on the wrong side of the age equation, but I actually don't quite get live streaming. I'm not going to go and watch something in progress. I'm going to start it as video on demand or something. However, I do get the experiential part of it. You know, Fox just released their new Fox Now app that's inclusive of FX, Nat Geo, and Fox content. And
You're lost.
You're already
You here. You made it. She got you here.
Maybe they're not, their phone is.
Okay. We should not hand out the LSD until after.
They're ready for the cocktails already.
All right. Sorry, I'm derailed right now.
Restate that, because I had something on that, but I totally got lost there for a second.
405
I
got
was
me.
asking about live streaming.
Yeah.
And
So even to this day, even millennials, a huge chunk of them still say that their default entertainment is to go home and sit down and turn on whatever is on right now. And so that's why live streaming continues to be an important product, because people feel like if you don't give it to them, if I'm talking about the whole package, people feel like if you don't give it to them, a huge part of the market feels like they're missing something. And certainly that's going to be true of things like the Oscars if they're on tonight, you know, the Tonys if they're on tonight and you're into Broadway, you know, so that still matters. The problem is a lot of the streaming solutions take you all the way back to 1978 because, of course, there's no way to record them. So now the various players are struggling to make sure that you can have some kind of DVR capability.
all right, let's shift gears a little bit to, we asked a little bit about cord cutting and cord nevers. A few things that I'll just throw out to the panel, that the survey suggested that in 2012, the average number of channels that on paid television that we watched was 15. Just recently, the number of channels is now down to 11. Okay, so if you just think about yourself, what does that include? You know, for me, there's some kids programming because still have the kids at home, general entertainment, and so on and so forth. So if you're just thinking about the number of channels, it jumps out to me skinny bundles,
Yeah.
just for starters. But then we asked the question, is what would be your preference? Would you prefer to just get the channels that you subscribe to, just the ones that you watch? Would you just take the whole package, the whole 300 or whatever it is? Or would you just rather watch the individual shows? And the respondents came back that 48% wanted to just get the channels that they watched.
Which means they want curation.
Yes.
That they have 10 favorite channels.
Yeah, 10 favorites.
And each of those favorites, they're saying, if I go there, those people are going to curate a basket of stuff that I will like if I go there. Whereas if you ask them for the favorite shows, then, that's a lot of work to try to figure out what your shows are. The interesting thing is, though, everybody has a favorite 10 channels, but everybody has different favorite 10.
So maybe it's 100, 150 maybe with all of us here.
There's this comment, I'm sorry, you're good. There's this comment that our chairman made last week where he goes, what's ultimately going to happen is everybody is going to pay about the same but feel better about it when they're able to finally sculpt the programming that they want. Because that's a high value. They're willing to, that's what all the packaging and bundling and a la carte is going to, is sculpting your own favorite 10, basically.
And then, so on cord cutting, in 2015, they were asked, how many of you are likely to cut the cord in the next 12 months? In 2015, that was 14%. So this year, it was 19%. Now, some of this is what they fill out themselves, so maybe there is some bias in that. I'll also just tell you, we also asked the question of what kind of content will you watch more or less of? Inevitably, they always say we're going to watch less reality-based television, and they don't do that. They watch more.
Still watch
because,
it.
I mean, who's the last three on Dancing with the Stars? I bet one of you can tell me.
It's not a Turner network, I don't know.
It wasn't me.
I'm the wrong demographic entirely.
Oh, boy.
And you see our example, because we know that at least three of them are lying.
Yeah,
That's right. What happens is my wife watches the show, and
Of course, my wife.
And
I
I
use that one too, by the way.
I just sort of wander through the background. And
Well, take that note, though, is that survey result is something that 19% say they will cut, right? Is there a follow-up question in there that says how many of you really did cut?
Interesting.
Because that data is already out there,
Right.
we don't ask that question,
Okay.
because this one is geared towards trying to get to their attitudes of what
Right.
they're thinking about doing.
Right.
So we didn't want to duplicate efforts there.
Which is fair, and I raised the point. There are quite a few cord cutters out there, right? You didn't really
We had at least three cord nevers.
cord nevers. You never really cut the cord, though. You still have a wireless service, I assume. You still have Wi-Fi at your house, perhaps. I mean, you're cutting your cable video programming subscription. I don't necessarily. I think that it still just kind of carries this connotation like, oh, I don't subscribe to anything anymore, and I think it's finally working its way out. But I still hear that a lot. Like, I'm a cord cutter, I'm a cord never. You still pay for services. Some of the people who said that still, have their hands up for Netflix, or you share a Hulu account or whatever. I don't hear that. But I think
Don't
that's
you build
important.
that into the business plan?
We'll have to. But that's important. I think you're still a content person. That's what we're really focused on. We want you to consume content. And if you do it through Sling, awesome. If you do it through Comcast, great. If you subscribe to Filmstruck, fantastic. We want to tell you a good story at Turner. And we're lucky that we have, and to kind of go back to the live streaming thing for a minute, we're lucky that we have brands, CNN and Adult Swim specifically, that are live streaming experiences for the most part. When you turn on, and I use Adult Swim, because news is news, Adult Swim, we're the number one network for that demographic, that time, whatever. It's incredible the number of people that watch Adult Swim live. So I don't think live is lost on millennials and younger groups. It's a challenge, but you got to tell them the right story.
Can we ask the cord never?
Where are our cord nevers?
Okay.
Stand up.
Okay.
Identify yourselves.
I promise.
So
Some
just
marketing
sort of-
materials we want to give you. Sorry.
You don't have to shout out, but I'm just curious, I'll ask each of you. Okay, so if I don't know if TV is important to you, but what is your TV package overall? What's the basket of services that if you're going to go home tonight and watch something with friends or whatever, what do you use?
I have a Roku device.
Yes.
Sling TV, Hulu,
First of all, thank you for having a Sling TV.
It's a great service.
Nothing like a little advertisement.
Yeah.
And I usually do watch Sling TV because I do like that experience of sitting down and not thinking about anything. I do end up switching to something like Netflix at some point because I do want what I want.
You have a Roku device, you had Sling TV, you had Netflix, I think you mentioned something else.
Well,
Hulu. Wow. That is a lot. So, and are you going into there's like thousands of Roku apps. Do you like explore any of the other OTT apps on Roku?
no, I usually go to those 3 or 4 that I have.
Okay. Rock on. I'm curious. Okay, same thing.
I have Netflix
Yeah. You live with Netflix. If
What
it- if it's
device
not-
What device do you watch it on?
and laptop.
You have a TV in your home. See, she's rare.
So,
I mean, a large monitor. That's rare to not have some sort of thing
It is.
other than your computer.
it's probably a significant percentage, but I have no idea what it is. I agree that it's probably rare, but it's probably growing. Yes.
I'm fully connected, and I've got the deluxe, DirecTV package and HBO Showtime. But I think everybody wants everything. It's just a function of cost. And so paying $150 a month, for a millennial is a tricky deal. So I think if
Yeah.
there's, rethinking of the ad model to pay for TV in a different way so that younger generations can connect in a different way and still can get an ad, I think we'll do that.
And I mean, it brings up an interesting point. At what point do our subscription to Hulu and Netflix and Amazon and all those that, whatever the price point is, at what point does it add up to what we were already paying on the actual MSO?
We can all ask ourselves the same question.
That's exactly right.
Most of us. Literally, the question is, when did you get rid of your landline?
Yeah.
Or do you still have it? Or, I've never had a landline. It's the same advancement and the same progression of the technology that's going to take place. You're going to get rid of those connectors. I'm ashamed to admit this, working at a TV network, but I was a cord cutter in 2005. I subsisted only on my PlayStation, and
Sure.
Clearwire internet, and that was it. And that's all I really needed. It wasn't until I got into media and entertainment that I decided I needed to do a little bit of quality control, quality assurance, and I got back into it. So I can completely understand it's the value equation. If you're paying for stuff that you don't watch, it's a simple math.
Yeah.
I would rather have a la carte entertainment. I'm pretty good at picking what I want to watch. I don't need to turn on the TV and flip through stuff. So I can see both sides of the argument. And I think the latest the FCC changes that enable everybody and their uncle to come out with a skinny bundle package and distribution deals, once the dust settles, will be ultimately beneficial to the consumer overall.
With the skinny bundles and those other.
I'm worried, though.
Coexist?
Yeah.
So,
Sorry.
I'm presently doing the maths right now. Do I get rid of my $160 worth of cable bill, and what is the minimum services I need? Well, I definitely need HBO, so that's and then I definitely need Hulu and Netflix, and obviously I need to find a way to get Fox, most likely through Sling. And so it's just, that adds up, and that's going to be $160 at some point as well.
The money sloshes versus being
Yeah.
cut out. It's just going around, but you feel better about it. I think that's important.
You feel better.
To your point, because I'm spending the money I want. I'm not just throwing it to one person for channels I'm not watching. I feel activated. Your example of what you do when you go home at night is really interesting to me. I, as a programmer, as a storyteller, need to get you hooked and not to go to Netflix as your second option, right? We'll talk about
Unless you're
upfronts
Netflix, but yeah.
Unless
yeah.
you're Netflix, which I'm okay with too, because there's a lot of relationship that happens with our storytellers and Netflix and everybody else. That's fine. But I've got to tell you better stories. And that's probably something that got lost during our reality TV days for a while. It was really just kind of a commodity. It was on, and you're
Cheap.
Hey, remember when reality was going to kill TV?
Oh, yeah.
There was this notion that nobody was ever going to script TV anymore. It was all over. It was all going to be dancing and confessionals and cake. And then all of a sudden, people picked up their game, and all of a sudden you had amazing new scripted content.
There's great stories. I know we're going to talk about upfronts in a minute, and to talk about Turner for a little bit too. But I saw more good stories and more good shows coming out of the upfronts last week, and Turner had a lot of good ones, and biased, of course. But I think there's great storytelling going on. You're seeing more opportunity and for producers, directors, writers, talent who want to be involved in telling stories on television, A, because they know that's where their audience could be and where they can build a brand, where they can build a following, but also where the ad experiences are getting a lot better. When True TV and other Turner networks are starting to go to reduce commercial ad loads, Good Behavior is a great example of this. Ratings go up. People are watching more. And it's a great story.
Yeah.
It helps.
Yeah, if you're a content creator, you have a job for life.
Yeah.
But it's funny how
Good content.
And we're fighting for them.
Well, I can make the argument for either.
Well,
And we're,
okay,
I've seen
well,
some bad movies lately.
and we are fighting for them. Like, we fight for our producers and storytellers daily for our networks. Kevin Riley leads our entertainment group, and several others, Chris Lynn and those folks at True TV, doing a fantastic job of finding great shows. We have to tell better stories.
do you see a world where we won't have 300 channels, that will be back down to 100 if we're only watching 11 per each one of us? And what would that do to those content creators?
it's going to kill the independence. I mean, this is the thing that worries me the most as a writer is, there's so much stuff out there that people are going to miss that right now is being held aloft by this tide that holds up the most popular stuff and brings into your home. Occasionally you'll stumble across some really strange old movie on TCM or some old detective show that Time Warner had and that's being carried because there's an extra channel that's carrying old hard-boiled channels. And if we continue, if people continue to niche, to just carve away and get rid of these niches that don't apply to them, eventually there won't be the critical mass to hold them up. I get that that's the market. That might just be the way that it goes. All those forgotten artists might just be forgotten forever. But nevertheless, I can't celebrate it. It's a little scary to me.
Well, we're going to find a place for those stories, though. I think if there were to be a shift in the number of channels that are carried, there will be fewer of them, perhaps.
Yeah.
But the content, since it's there, somebody's going to want to watch it, and somebody's going to find a model to figure it out, and
I hope so, yeah.
and to support it. I hope so too. There's a lot of stuff out there that I
So
will
the
never get
content
around to.
the content will go find a home somewhere, and
Sure, the barrier to
but the
entry for
network
that.
itself may be gone.
Yeah, the barrier to entry for that type of stuff is so low. It's nothing.
True.
Anybody can throw a service up there. It may not be very good. You may not have very many subs, but it could happen.
I mean, if you think about content that's already been shelved and now has found new life because of digital, I mean, it's classic long tail. There's been decades where a certain show might have made $0.
Yeah.
That all of a sudden is making pennies again, and those pennies turn into dollars, those dollars turn into, a real audience at some point.
I have a question in the back.
LA Times had a really good article on cord cutters. That doesn't necessarily mean cutting your cord doesn't mean you're cutting the costs, because if you're cutting out, like I'm with Mark, I've got the DirecTV.
Yeah.
What programming, what writing, what channel, but what shows I'm no longer going to get unless I buy 5, 6 OTT.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the challenge, and from the network standpoint, there's the windowing of your shows as well, right? That they'll end up on Netflix, so are you willing to wait a year, or a movie? Are you willing to wait that window and not get it when it first
Yeah.
comes out?
So, I mean, from our end, that's really down to the initial negotiations with the production houses and stuff. That's changed this year. I mean, and last year, the networks are starting to negotiate full stack rights, so they're able to release the shows as they see fit based on market research, not based on what used to be conventional wisdom. So,
Yeah.
I think we're in a good spot there, and I think it's going to be mutually beneficial to the production houses as well. Despite the fact that there's an initial reluctance.
I continue to hear about search being an issue and
Yeah.
finding the content that you want to get to. What have you found is the best way to find the content that you want, and what would you want to see versus what's currently available?
Universal search is critical to content discovery, to learning about viewership patterns and behaviors. We're making huge investments in universal search across platforms. I don't care if it's the data that we're giving for TMS or whatever services that are out there, or it's building for platform-specific search.
Yeah.
It is imperative that we are there. There's a lot
on that little Roku stick or that Fire Stick or that Apple TV box, and I have to be able to find. You have to be able to find good behavior faster. You have to be able to find the alienist faster, and by saying a lot of words, right? You can say the alienist. You can say director of the show, or Ridley Scott, or whatever you want. Whatever's going to get you there, I need to find a way to do that. I think we're going to find that search is the top 2 priority for 17 and 18 when it comes to at least programmers on these devices.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still a requirement that we have to move toward universal search. But in the interim, a lot of the video content metadata has grown up as well. There's a lot new. We can plumb a lot more data than we used to be able to, and we can create a curated and moderated experience for the viewer that is maybe intrinsically. Yeah, I don't know how to do that. Is it working?
You,
give me that one.
Do you want to share mine?
I'll take that
We
one.
could be like
Yeah, let's just shift.
Gene and Paul.
Okay.
How's that?
Now he's live.
Now I got to go a little back farther. So what I was saying was,
You want to tell us about your graphic novel now that we can?
yeah. I'll just, if you can go to this URL. So anyway, with regards to the richness of content metadata available now, you're going to find the networks and the programmers packaging up content in more unique ways. You could be like, show me the action package on Fox, or every movie with Bruce Willis, for example. I don't know, those of you that own a Prime Stick, when you go through that, whenever you pause a scene, it has the metadata in there to tell you what actors are in that scene that you're watching. You can throw a lasso around that a million different ways and come up with specific packages for each user based on that, at which point you can sell more of a richer experience a la carte to very niche viewership.
Since we're talking a little bit about big data here, let's keep running with it. Can you comment on that from an MSO perspective?
I can also continue. So, I mean, we absolutely, the data is important, and it's so important, as you guys were talking about, and yet at the same time, it is deeply frustrating to me that, for instance, I also use a Roku device. And so right now, you mentioned Tribune, so metadata is sort of standardized across a number of different providers, and there's a few major providers of metadata schema, basically. But right now, it's just the tip of the iceberg. If all of this material, content, new and old, new cooking shows being made in the Valley, silent films from the 20s, giant iceberg of stuff, and only about that much of it at the top actually is properly metadated. And so that means if I'm searching on the Roku, it gives, and I say, I want Blood and Roses, which is a Roger Vadim film from 1962. It'll tell me whether it's available in like the top 50 channels on Roku. But I guarantee you, there's thousands of Roku channels, and one of them probably has it, legitimately. But all of that data, and so as a consumer, especially as a person who wants to find different content, and I know exactly what content I want, it's still, there's so much opportunity for improvement.
And we work really closely with those platforms to help optimize that experience. An example, there's a platform that's talking about, okay, how do we rank this? Yeah. It should be what's available to you now, right? So you have a device and it's got 100 apps on it that you've downloaded, or 50 apps or whatever, and one of them I subscribe to, the other one I don't. Which one's first? Mm-hmm. Or it's available as a transactional piece. Maybe that's last, or maybe I have the app but I'm not logged in because my session's expired, because my MSO canceled me, because my cookie expired. That happens. How do we rank those? So we're working really close with our platforms to be sure they have the best experience when it comes to search, because it's so important.
What search function, what search tool do you guys use to find, if I say, I want to watch For Your Eyes Only tonight because Roger Moore died, how do you look to see where it is? Yes?
Wheretowatch.com.
Yeah.
Wheretowatch.com.
I use that one.
All right. What were you going to suggest?
Well, I was just at my cousin's house on the East Coast where they have Comcast, and I was so impressed that you could voice.
Push the blue button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Push the blue button and say it, and it went to their Amazon Prime,
We're rolling out voice search. It is important.
Yeah.
Google, yes.
Well, my Roku does that, the voice.
Yep. Roku, Apple TV, Amazon.
Can I stream it? Right. There's also Just Watch does it. The problem is all of these, I'm always testing can I stream it versus Just Watch, and it always misses a couple, which is deeply frustrating, you know, and because you're like, you're telling me Amazon had this thing all along, and I just wasted 20 minutes trying to find out where it is, and yeah.
But that's the point, though. I think search has got to get better. I'm a Comcast person in Atlanta, and it's fantastic. But
Comcast.
you're in Comcast. Sorry, thank you. But you'll see more of that coming. And talk to your Siri. You know, talk to Google Assistant.
Yeah.
You know, last week Google rolled out 50 more integrated apps to Google Home. Right? Hey Google Home, play Game of Thrones from HBO Go on my living room TV. That's going to happen more frequently.
Question?
Question, is that all right? That's all right.
When is someone going to figure out platform personalization? Everybody seems to be racing to do it, but are over-personalizing, like Netflix, you watch World War II movie, Hitler's all over it.
Yeah. I think that stuff's starting to net out right now. I mean, you look at Apple TV, you look at the new release of Hulu, and even the new release of the Fox app. We all have personalization built into all of those. I mean, I'm sure I'd ask you who's watching this if you have multiple people in your household, and then it begins to build a curated playlist for you. Admittedly, the algorithms need to mature a little to make sure, one, that you're not painted as a neo-Nazi for starters, and secondarily, to actually give you the breadth of content that you consume. Like, I'll put on documentaries when I'm cooking or something, just that background, and that's all it recommends to me anymore. So.
But what a unique opportunity that is to build your own. I mean, that's the personalization, right? That's how you bring the value back. It didn't go away, but it's where you bring more value to your subscription package, your video package from an MVPD. It's like, why can't I jump between, you know, TBS and TNT shows, and maybe it's CNN. I know, you know, maybe I like to watch Don Lemon that comes on at 10. I know that, you know, my personalized stream should go to that. I think we're going there.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's from a consumer's perspective. From a business person's perspective, what alliances and partnerships are you seeing to actually make some of that stuff happen?
So, I mean, just from an ad tech point of view, I'm watching a lot of the data science companies that provide audience measurement to us now dipping their toes in that arena. So as we track user behavior across our sites and across partner sites, et cetera, we can get a pretty rich profile on what people are interested in. So that type of stuff evolves to content consumption as well.
I think technically moving a lot of things to the cloud helps, right? If it's there, we can program through not through a master switchboard or something like that. Like, we actually have the ability to pull and dynamically change someone's personalization feed. Data is obviously the biggest driver of that. How do I know between accounts what I'm doing? There are a lot of companies out there that are getting into this space, and we're making big investments in there as well.
This is deeply important to us. I mean, you know, most of our subscribers are on a set-top box. We're continually improving that experience. You know, we have the Hopper platform, and so you're talking about millions and millions of homes, and they're on a subscription service. So the only thing you can do is continue to add value, so they don't feel so they feel like they're continuing to get their money's worth. And personalization is the golden ticket to do that. If I sit down and I feel like this. It just works. It just knows me. It knows what I want to see. So that's the goal. And of course, as you said, if you have multiple people in the household, then you have to figure out a way to elegantly switch that. You know, otherwise, for the longest time, I shared my Netflix account with my 2 daughters, and
He paid for the streams. He had the 3.
I paid for it, and so it wants to know if I want to watch more mermaid shows. And yes, but I mean, still.
So is that the trick for an MSO provider to not be disintermediated? Is that the golden ticket?
An MSO?
So an MSO, a cable company or
Yeah.
a satellite provider, a lot of concern that group, if they're not careful, could just be disintermediated, except for maybe just a pipe.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Is that the ticket, or is
That's why you spend all this capital investment on a box that actually does something, that actually, functions as a DVR and has all of this capability. That's the purpose of it all, is to make the product better for people. And if you get rid of it, eventually people are going to reinvent it, because a lot of that functionality is stuff that people like.
Okay. There was another question there before we move on to the next topic. Go ahead.
So speaking of ratings, which you touched on earlier, how are your programming departments at the networks making decisions on pickups and cancellations for shows on development?
Oh boy.
As ratings continue to...
Yeah, tell us.
I think there's a large orb that they gather around and hold on occasion, if I had to make a guess. I don't know. The rating numbers, I think everyone agrees that they aren't quite what they used to be, and that a hit is a hit at a much lower number. And I think that joke actually came up at our upfronts this year. Seth MacFarlane made it about the Mick, actually. So I'm not sure. I mean, how do you gauge what a hit is on a survey-based measurement company, or a large survey-based measurement company, when a lot of the content consumption...
Not here.
Would have been here, but they
Yeah, that's right. I was on the one with them last year. I wanted to grill him. But a lot of consumption happens over here, and it's not directly measurable via what our decisions are being made. So a lot of people are making decisions, what I would call off script, around this stuff, and taking a little more gambles than they would, which is interesting. But I think the other large measurement companies need to hurry up and get platform capable, where people are consuming the content, and get directly measurable as well.
We're looking for fans. Ratings are important, right? That's the measure that we trade on currently. But I think that we are looking for engagement. We're looking for fans. If we see a series or see a show, and I'm not on the programming side, but I take the assumption that if we see a series, see a show that has lots of engagement of a certain group, and that's attractive to a certain advertiser, perhaps that show may stay a little, has a better chance or whatever if the ratings weren't there. I think it's really about the engagement, about being a fan. We want to build fans for our shows.
So Barry, you just follow.
Absolutely.
As a meter?
Yeah.
A meter. I would call it a data point. I would call it part of the package that is looked at.
Just, in the social funnel, you move them into the fold, but yes, it's definitely there.
So Barry, how is Turner trying to create that fan experience?
Give them the best platform, first of all. Make the TV Everywhere experience easier for them to get to the story if it's a catch-up basis. The VOD folders on set-top boxes and the actual MVPD experience has got to be the best it can be, the easiest it can be. I can search and find it easier. Getting to the content is that first hurdle. And it's telling the best story. I keep coming back to that, but it's really telling, for us, a variety of stories on a variety of networks, finding the things that work for our fans. But we want you to be a fan of a show. We want you to be a fan of a brand. We want you to be engaged with us and not just be passive. Probably doesn't answer your question very well, but
That was great.
All right. One more question. She beat you to it, and then we'll move on. To the right, yes.
My question is that I thought and hoped and wished and dreamed that the expansion of different platforms would allow newcomers to break in on the writer sector. And what I'm finding is that it's just now Aaron Kaplan has 5 shows instead of 1 show.
Yes.
How do we fix that?
So there's a little bit of a monoculture. How do we fix that?
Yeah, let's fix that.
Okay, stop watching those shows.
Some would say that's not wrong.
Well, no, I mean
They're right now, but-
to me, it's an easy equation. We should stop watching those shows. It's that they make stuff because people are consuming it. I think it's that simple. We have a large news organization that's on the other side of our business, and people are like, "How can you listen to those guys?" I'm like, "I don't listen. Don't listen to them." There you go.
watch a CNN.
That's the answer. That said, it is an insular business, right? We have people who are known quantities. They're able to package up and get financing and distribution and all that good stuff. and pull together a great team and produce great content. So that's the type of, if a network doesn't want to gamble, you will see that monoculture within their lineup. I mean, just to point back at Fox for a minute, I think we have 7 or 8 shows with Gordon Ramsay on it alone.
Yeah.
You know, pretty soon he's like going to be a Bachelor and the Bachelorette at the same time. It's a new thing in virtual reality. I will be seeking out partners soon on that one. So.
I mean, the problem is that if you're a content creator, if say you're making a small marriage drama, you know, or whatever, you're making your content. Maybe you have 10. A gentleman at the last panel said, "I'm a director. I have 10 episodes of a show. What do I do with it?" And the problem is that getting noticed isn't free. I mean, virality isn't free. Marketing is expensive, even the cheapest kind. And it might be totally beyond the reach of a creator. Now, in other industries, DC Comics, Marvel Comics, just to pick those 2 monsters, they have actually tried to figure out ways to foster new talent, to create, you know, they'll like create a banner under which they'll release work by new writers and new artists and so forth. And it's always been couched that way. Or they would create, you know, back of the book. So you'd have the X-Men, and then you'd have like an 8-page story that's a standalone thing, just trying out some new talent. You know, so if the big players were to decide there's some way to cultivate new talent, that's not impossible, but it takes money. You know, that's costing Marvel something big. You know, and you know, somebody has to produce all that stuff. So but you know, it is possible if it were important to us.
I think some, you know, yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, so I have movie theaters in Los Angeles, and I show new films every night of the week. And I would love to show more television content in the theaters. I think it makes total sense, and it's a win-win. How do we get that to happen?
Interesting.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
I mean, we have
Fandom.
we have a lot of, that's an awesome concept. I mean, we've seen some events like that.
Fathom. I'm sorry, I said Fathom. Yeah.
Right, with the opera and some of the stuff.
Doctor
we met.
Who and stuff.
Right.
That would be good. I get that.
I mean, truth be told, I don't want to watch every show in my home.
Yeah.
Sometimes, actually most of the time, I want to go out.
Yeah.
There's something about it.
You have content that I'd want to see out.
Would
I appreciate that. I to be, you
Not
know,
only that, I have a screen.
right, to show on that, yeah.
Maybe I mean, like, if you pulled together the audience and had the actual speculated numbers of here's the viewership we anticipate, you could easily take that to a network or a distributor or a production house and ink an agreement with them for a few night showings. I mean, that's the kind of call they would take. You would literally need the data to prove it out ahead of time. If however many theaters you have 100 theaters or
Well, let me tell you something.
3.
It's me and like 500 other of my brothers and sisters.
Yeah, you have a consortium.
Well, you know, we make it a point to go, and this is a social thing, we make it a point to go watch the NBA Western Conference Finals at a bar. Why don't we go make a point to watch Good Behavior at your theater, using Turner examples? But, you know, why not, right? I think it's a great concept.
Doctor Who did premiere its first episode of the new season in the movie theaters this year. And I know that I was forced to bring a 13-year-old, so.
So going on that concept, I'm going to bring up something, premium SVOD. Okay?
Okay.
The thought is that maybe there'd be a window after the initial release in exhibition theaters, in your theaters or others, and 2 weeks, after 2 weeks, maybe it's $50. After 4 weeks, maybe it's $30. Obviously, there's some challenges with a lot of the contracts, which are based on box office and things of that nature. Do you have a perspective on premium SVOD? I mean, I'm just going along the same kind of a new option.
Are you talking about like EST?
like
or-
movies.
No, I'm talking about,
Yeah,
name your favorite picture that's out right now.
Oh, I
So
see.
J.J. Abrams just had a big article, I don't know if it was in Variety or Hollywood Reporter, on this very same subject where, again, he was pointing out the value equation of it. But if you look at all the theater owners, you're cutting out that entire market as well. So his argument was, and I'm paraphrasing here, was that the movie theater experience is no longer premium if the theaters aren't keeping up their end of the agreement and making the theaters the experiential place that they are. And that was his advocacy for a premium digital release, which would be, I think they were pretty expensive, somewhere in the north of $70, $75 for viewing
There's
in-home.
all sorts of ranges. Of
Yeah,
I think of your major studios, all of them but Disney are advocating for something like that and would love to see it.
Correct.
So
And
yes, the exhibitors are all saying no way in hell.
I think it's an inevitability, but I also think it's one of those scenarios where you kind of get what you wish for, because you will find piracy will spike up again.
Yeah.
And there will be all sorts of new ways to fake these devices and get in and get at that content. I guarantee you whatever encryption or transmission methods they put on it will be broken in a few days, if not before it even launches. So
It reminds me of what we used to charge. What they used to charge for video, home video, like VHS. Like I think Sudden Impact, to name an ancient Clint Eastwood movie. Sudden Impact came out as an experiment simultaneously on VHS and in the theaters. But at the time, if a new VHS tape came out, you, the consumer, paid exactly the same thing that a rental house, of which there were very few, would pay. So you're talking about $80 or $90, and I'm talking about in early '80s dollars. I have no idea who was paying that kind of money, but that didn't last because people were pirating tapes like crazy, and eventually you got to the point of, the end of the DVD era where DVDs are $8, in today's dollars. And
And I think the thought would be it's not going to be the tentpole films. It's going to be that mid-tier where you might be a young parent, have children, and going to the movie theater may not be viable.
An option.
Yeah.
well, we're doing that. For what it's worth, we have, and for that matter, most of the MVPDs try to do this. We do have some films that we take great pride in are available for rental at the same time that they're playing in theaters. Snowpiercer was a good example from last year. That's an interesting independent film that had some stars, but that if you're living in Hewitt, Texas, there might not be a theater that's playing Snowpiercer.
All right, let's shift gears one more time. We're running a little low on time. But on kind of revenue models, and obviously advertising tends to be kind of the model that we're seeing quite a bit. You see the pendulum swing back and forth all the time. And I know a couple of you were at the upfronts. Can you give us a perspective, any lessons learned? What do we see there?
My experience at the upfronts this year was fantastic. Again, Turner perspective, we have some of the best shows coming out on television in the next 6 to 12 months. Are going to be great. We've got some great returners, other ones like that. We are seeing positive performance with our reduced ad load networks. True TV saw an increase in their ratings right away, starting last October of last year. They're going to get that out to other networks as the course of the year goes on. We're in that dual revenue stream business, right? We've got our MVPD partners, our distribution partners, and we have our advertising partners. All seemed very pleased with where the Turner brands were going.
So when we say smaller load packages, what?
Smaller loads. So we cut, I'll use good behavior. We were, I think it was 19 minutes was the initial ad load. We're down to 5 per hour. So that's a huge cut, right? And from a storyteller perspective, you get to tell 55 minutes of a story versus 41 every hour, which I think is pretty cool. And that makes us attractive to, producers that we want to work with and writers we want to work with. They want to tell more of their story because their option is either I go to you and I get 5 minutes, or I go to or 19 minutes or whatever, or I go to Netflix and I don't have any ads at all.
Question.
We want them with us. Yeah.
On your reduced ad loads, are you making up your revenue from secondary monetization source, whether it be subscription or something else, since you
Well, I think I can't speak totally to that, but I will say that less inventory doesn't necessarily mean less dollars in the beginning. We want you to call our ad sales team early to get this before it sells out.
raise prices?
I think there's a balance there with anyone.
We call it exclusivity.
There's a balance there with anyone. But now, the recall of a message in an advertising increases, right? Your brand recall goes up when there's only 5 minutes. I'm not as a viewer inclined to go, flip through the commercial. if I only have one break, every 30 minutes.
Barry, how about inventory? All right, what inventory is really the most sought after by advertisers at this point?
I don't know. I mean, I think you have to keep it, for any advertiser, relevant, sticky. Look what we did at the tournament. Okay, so NCAA basketball tournament, March Madness.
Yeah.
You couldn't go past a break, which in sports they were required, right? You've got timeouts, you've got breaks you have to take. You saw Charles Barkley at like the beginning of every ad we did for any of our corporate sponsors, and our recall for those was incredible.
Okay.
Everybody liked that, right? I mean, you watch Charles Barkley wear a hoodie backwards and eat chips out of it. That's hilarious. and nobody fast forward, and they couldn't fast forward through it because of sports, but they stuck around. They didn't go away. So I think that's what advertisers want. They want it relevant, they want it valuable, and they want it, to the audience that they're.
Can I ask you a
trying to
question
reach.
about advertising? Did I interrupt you?
No?
So, okay, this I'm just really curious, and you said that you knew the answer. So, I watch a lot of
Make it up.
stuff on Roku, and I'm like, I'm looking at like Route 66 on Shout Factory, or I'm looking at whatever, reruns of Magnum PI on something else. And a lot of these are advertising supported.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll notice they'll have just as many slots as you would on linear TV, but they're running the same terrible 3 ads. And I'm like,
yeah.
what is going on? I mean, does nobody want to advertise on this stuff? Like, what, or is
Well,
it overly
so-
expensive?
Yeah, this was a question we actually should have covered at the beginning, because I would posit that the connected device market, so your Rokus, your Apple TVs, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
as they grow up, the advertisers and agencies don't have a lot of technical capabilities on those platforms, and their partners are often these smaller technology partners who are also growing up as well, who are developing their capabilities based on what has the most audience for any of their markets. So, one, you got an issue of not everybody is technically capable there. Secondarily, there's a lot of initial reluctance from the old guard advertisers and agencies to put their money into these new places. And in a tertiary fashion, the direct sales effort against them lags there as a result. So what that leaves is you have an arena where people are consuming more, but we're not filling it with the right amount of advertising.
Yeah.
We're keeping the same ad loads. We're not reducing ad load. And then it gets filled with the programmatic marketplaces.
This seems like a big opportunity,
So,
like a big negative muzzle.
I get beat up over it every single day. Multiple marketplaces have the same ads running in them. So often you'll see the same creative running through multiple marketplaces. Try telling this to the CFO at 2 a.m. on Saturday, and it becomes a different challenge. There's things that we're looking into to solve that. One is to partner with the advertisers and agencies to make this more of their problem, because it's the middle that doesn't care. The middle just pushes volume.
Right.
Other creative ways we can structure programmatic to run within paid content, or do we use things like asset aging to put our per meter advertising on the newer content and allow that to happen on the content that is aged?
Yeah.
Oh, these are things that we're modeling out from a revenue and cost standpoint, but it's all hypothesis right now.
How about brand safety? Did you hear a lot about that during the upfronts?
So yeah, we're highly focused on it, in that we're having new platforms coming out tethered to that specifically, both brand safety and optimization of the audience midstream. And then, as it was pointed out earlier, there will be reduced ad loads. I'm not going to echo everything Barry said, but we're doing the same exact stuff. Probably putting out a few better shows, maybe. But but the point is, the foundation's in place for how we make our money historically, and now it's time for us to start to experiment a little. We got new leadership in place that is primed to do just that, and now we need to center the advertisers and the agencies on what is truly valuable, which is the cost of attention. If you have somebody's attention, that's what you actually need. So if you're watching an old version of a Magnum PI because Tom Selleck has an awesome mustache,
Right.
or you're watching a brand new show, you're giving us the same attention.
Yeah.
And if we can make sure that we use that attention appropriately, reduce the ad load for the engaged user, then I think we're in a better situation all around. And that also will eventually engender a higher effective yield, Because you're right, you have less ads, but if you're making more money from them, there's a sweet spot on the graph somewhere where we're aiming for.
I think you begin to target by intent as well.
Yeah.
You know, we, for years and years, always been demographics, 18 to 34, female, lives in Missouri, whatever. Intent. Where am I at my life stage right now? Am I going to buy a house? Am I going to buy a car? Am I have 2 kids at home? You know, things like that. I think that's where we're going. It's very hypothetical, but I feel like that's where.
Are we starting to see different lengths of content instead of just a 22-minute, comedic ep?
We are already, absolutely. We had, they had to shoot like a whole new 2 shows of Good Behavior or something like that to make up for the difference in time,
Really?
right? With only 5 minutes of ad load, that's 14 minutes more story.
Interesting.
8-episode series, you're looking at another 120 minutes.
Yeah, and I think that changes the equation too. I mean, you always heard peripherally about the showrunners begging for an extra 30 seconds or a minute or, even to be turned down and have to change a whole story arc because of it. I think that puts us in a better position to allow them the more freedom to get done what they want to get done.
Can I just say we can look to the past, though? Because when television was beginning, and we hadn't standardized as much, there was a lot of experimentation with different form factors. Edge of Night was a 15-minute soap opera. General Hospital was like 8 or 9 minutes per episode at the time. Peyton Place, when it was running, was, I think, a half-hour long twice a week, like Tuesdays and Thursdays. So there were all these different ways, and I'm talking about major network programming that was expected to have vast audiences, but there wasn't this expectation that it was either 22 minutes or whatever it is for an hour.
I like us moving in that way. Our kids' programming is like that.
Yeah.
6-minute episode, 10-minute episode, 12-minute episode.
That's right, yeah.
We'll
that's
put
right.
it together. Yeah.
Good.
Go ahead.
This question is more for Joe and for Barry. And unlike you, Jason, which is Dish and Sling, you have more control over the consumer experience and technical problems. So I'm a consumer and something breaks down, I'm probably going to go directly.
We have call centers for that, yeah.
So you're an MVPD.
Yeah.
And that's just another product in your shelf. For you two, your brand.
Yes.
So you're going through third parties between smart TV, streaming players, hybrid set-top boxes. I gotta think there's lots of consumers that have problems here getting through to your service. Do you get the consumer complaints?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Please?
Yes. App stores.
I spent several hours this week alone on a consumer complaint, and
Wow.
You seem like that's a little bit below your pay grade.
well, we have entire departments who are interested in making sure that we maintain the user experience. But to address it specifically, the problem is even a little more complex because you have to be able to determine where the point of failure is. So we do so through SLA monitoring, which is service level agreement. We negotiate with the companies that provide our stream services. If you look at Verizon VDMS and M-Dialogue and the platform and the people that are able to do HLS live streaming, et cetera, they have to adhere to standards that we set and negotiate with them. And we also need to set separate monitors to monitor for their compliance. One of the issues being oftentimes the Akamais of the world actually operate quicker than the people looking to monitor them, so you can't really catch them in that arena. However, in addition to that, we also have standards and practices we need to monitor for. We need to monitor for COM compliance, so make sure that the audio levels are appropriate throughout. So we have all sorts of whiz-boings in place to do just that. And then we also do visual quality control as well. But if you think about the math problem of visual quality control for a person with 40 hours available to do something, watching a 30-minute show that you can't scrub through the ad breaks turns into a 10-minute effort. So that's the most discrete unit of work. How much content do we release per channel per day on all the different platforms? That issue does not scale. So we need that level of automation out there to do so.
Do you, the last part to this bucket of wet technical problems is, do you do that in-house or do you farm all that out? So you must have some big teams in-house.
It's a little both, but it's most likely, we're of the opinion of let people be good at what they're going to be good at. We produce content and we stand up apps and processes, but we'll have people build the apps for us. We partner with companies for ad serving and all the logistics around that. So it makes sense that we would prefer to work with people who have already solved this problem instead of reinventing the wheel.
Question.
Regarding Turner and Adult Swim specifically, you used Twitch recently to live stream marathon
Yep.
full series. And it proved that people wanted to watch and discuss their favorite shows with like-minded viewers
Yeah.
while it's live.
Yeah.
Is there any plan to take advantage of that or to harness that?
Yeah, we're always looking for ways to make that content, that programming better. I think the marathon channels that are on adultswim.com and what they've used on Twitch and things like that are really unique and pretty cool. I mean, the things that Adult Swim does it's always amazing to me. So yeah, I think they use that to inform programming decisions. Do we need to bring back Space Ghost? I mean, maybe they're looking at it that way. But
Please.
what's that?
Please.
Right? That'd be awesome, wouldn't it? If you ever drive in Atlanta, there's a wall across, so Techwood, all the networks on one side, and then Adult Swim's across the street. They have a big black flag on the top of their building, called the Pirate Ship sometimes. But along their wall leading up to the building, they have all the shows that have been retired. And it's super cool the way they've done like this little mural of like, the years they were alive and all that. And all those shows are making its way to marathon channels, right? And so it's a very active conversation about that.
It just proves that people might not live with someone who watches the same shows as them, but there's people all over.
Personally, prior to Turner, I was at WWE, built the network there, had the same experience. People will watch programming a world away because they can, and they cling to that community experience. It's pretty cool.
We've got time for maybe 2 more questions I see here and in the back.
Question for Barry. Just following up on the good behavior, you guys doing the same reduced ad load for Animal Kingdom, which premieres next week? And I think it's probably like a bigger hit than good behavior, right?
I don't know the ratings off the top of my head or what we call a hit. They're both great shows, different networks, different or different groups, I would say. But yeah, I think they're doing that. Reduced ad loads. I mean, we will see what happens as more shows come out. And you saw some of this. I saw the trailer for Alienist right last week at the Upfront. It's incredible, cinematic, best served by a reduced ad break. I think you will start to see more of that as time goes on.
In the back.
Could you please go a little deeper into how you measure engagement? Because they're trying to in particular talk about attention. The
Yeah.
industry is still dominated by Nielsen, which is the greatest lie that anybody buys.
Oh, boy.
Not touching it.
That's not my quote, by the way.
Yeah.
It's a quote from an unknown executive whom we interviewed. Okay. So basically, how do you measure engagement in the news space, and how do you sell the concept of engagement to your advertisers?
Okay, ours is pretty easy. We directly measure engagement because it is based on user action. And in the beginning of, you can do a stream replacement or a pod replacement based on your interactivity. And you're given the choice at the beginning of the thing, very similar. You've probably seen it on Hulu as well. You go on Hulu and it says, pick your experience. With the TrueX engagement proposition, it is to engage with an ad. You might have the Muppets lead you through, I think it was Ford Focus or something. Or you could be like, you get the regular ad load. So that's a simple measurement. That's saying this many people engaged, this many people chose not to engage. But there's a whole set of rich metrics behind it that some find interesting, some ignore. How long you spent mousing over this, mouse speed, click rate. I think all that resolves. Any one metric I don't think is interesting in and of itself, but I think the amalgam of metrics put in the hands of a right sociologist, maybe say someone who runs an entire team over at USC, for example. Hi. And then things start to get interesting there. So we directly measure user engagement that way on the advertising content. The video content, that's a little different, but we do have a direct one-to-one measurement to an IP address. But then you get into whether or not this address is a personal device or what can be a living room device and have multiple people per household watching it. So there's all sorts of numbers that we use. But I think to more directly answer your question, I think the premium publishers need to continue to shift the conventional wisdom that Nielsen is the be-all and end-all. I mean, we have Nielsen, ComScore, Rentrack, and now we have all sorts of direct measurements via the platform providers themselves, the stream providers, the apps. So we have all sorts of big data that we can cobble together to support whatever hypotheses we need supported. And I think we, as I stated earlier, I think we are experimenting with them and trying to identify what the best value exchange is as pertains to advertising and engagement.
Well, and with that, we have now run out of time. I want to thank our panel.
Nailed it.
Ran it out. Ran it out.
Where do I point them toward the beverages?
Right outside.
Oh, sweet.